before the public and debate. And so we called this special meeting for tonight. There was no work session. This is just a meeting that we're going to have here. And with that, I'll go ahead and we'll have an opening prayer. I've asked Councilmember Vance if he would give that, and he agreed. And then we'll have Councilmember Westergaard lead us in the pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we come before thee this time. We're thankful for many blessings. We're thankful to gather in this capacity for Tremont City, and ask that thy Spirit be with us here, that we might be able to hear all sides of the issue and be able to communicate and be able to address all the sides so the right decisions will be made for this area. We're grateful to thee for all the many blessings thou hast bestowed upon us. We're grateful to live in this area. Grateful for the people that live here, for the unity that exists here in the community, and ask that we might be able to go forward with thy help, and ask these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Blair and Lyle. We traditionally go around and introduce all of the council members and our administration who are here with us this evening. I'll do that. We've got our city administrator, Bill Kobabe, with us over here to my left, and then Councilmember Jeffrey Holt on my left, and Councilmember Blair Westergaard, Councilmember Lyle Vance, myself, Councilmember Brett Rohde, Wesley Stepp, and then we've had some changes with our recorder. We have Cynthia Nelson, who is our new recorder. We're grateful that you're on board now, and welcome. And then what we have is Lindsay Nesson, if Lindsay's over here, is our assistant city manager. And then looks like we have Brady Hanson here with us, our fire chief. Some of the others. Shari. Oh, can't forget Shari. We've got Shari Euler here, our treasurer. And I think I've got everybody picked out. We're grateful that you're here with us this evening, those of you who are in attendance. And so we're thankful that you're here with us. Council, we have item number 3 on the agenda is a declaration of conflict of interest. Council members, are there any conflicts with the agenda tonight, with any conflicts of interest? No. Hearing none, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Council?
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as written.
Motion by Lyle Vance.
Second it.
Second by Brett Rohde. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes. Let's see, there are no minutes to approve because they haven't been put together yet, so we'll move on to item number 6. This is your time this is a public comment period. This is your opportunity to address the city council regarding your concerns or ideas. We ask you to keep your comments to under 3 minutes, and if you have more time, if you need more time, then what we would like you to do is maybe get with us after. We'll hold to the 3 minutes, but get with us and we'll make sure your questions get answered. Time is now yours.
Hello, I'm Ben Greener, and if you could pull up out of your code book, Title 15, Chapter 15-900. It's weight restricted roads. The reason I'm bringing this up is when they started the construction on 1,000, they pulled down the weight restriction signs. And I know another citizen, another resident, went and approached Paul or somebody down in the office down there, and they were ignored. So I went down to talk to Paul and Rusty, and I brought the regulation or the code with me and explained that to them. So in that code, it has, if you're there, it shows 2 roads in Tremonton that are weight-restricted roads. And I'm concerned about 1,000 north from 2,300 west out to 4,000. We modified this when I was on the planning commission. We had public hearings when Stokes and Freightliner come in, and this was a concern of the public that heavy transportation, and they're big trucks, they were taking that road as a shortcut. So I just want to point out that that is a weight-restricted road. They did put the sign back up out on 400, but nothing's been put back up down low. We need some better signs for truck traffic to go on 2,000. That's a truck route. It's labeled that. We need to make sure that trucks are taking that road way before they have an opportunity to get up to 23 or, going on up the hill. And if you look at 15-902, it just talks gross vehicle weight. I think we ought to change that to gross vehicle weight registered or whatever the title is. The difference is gross vehicle weight is what the vehicle weighs. The weight restriction is 12,000 pounds. That's pretty hard to enforce. If you go down Interstate 80 from Ogden to Spanish Fork, you'll see that 2 center lanes are weight restricted to 18,000 pounds GVWR. And that's the registered maximum load or weight that vehicle can weigh. And we need to change that to that term being GVWR. So law enforcement or whoever can pull up registration and see what that vehicle can legally weigh. And they don't have to, basically they're gonna have to ignore it right now because I don't think they have scales or any way to really tell. But we ought to be looking at other roads in our town that limit heavy trucks. I mean, some of these trucks weigh over 80,000 pounds and they're hard on the roads. And I got 2 examples of roads. 1,000 north again from the hospital out to the northbound and northbound on-ramp and off-ramps. That road is only 7 years old and it's already being tore up. We get a lot of truck traffic on it. It's already got spider webbing, ruts, cracks. Our roads need to last longer than 7-8 years. Another example is 1,000, right there by the golf course. If you drive it from hospital again down to the intersection of Main, you'll notice by the golf course, you do this. There's some bumps, some damage being done on that road, and that doesn't come from cars. We've seen vehicles parked off the side of the road for the weekend. If you jumped over to your other 15-201, talks about parking. Commercial vehicles are only allowed to park for 4 hours. And once again, I think it's 12,000 pounds, and that also should be changed to GVWR.
Ben, I think your time is.
Okay, good. Made my point, I think.
What I would suggest we do is let's get together and meet with Paul and Bill, and let's carry this conversation a little further.
Thank you.
But I think we get the idea, what you're trying
Okay.
to say. I just think that we need to have more time to discuss this.
Mayor, the signs have been ordered.
The signs have been ordered? Okay,
But it needs to be changed, too.
okay. All right, thank you, Ben.
Hi, Christy Boquet. I just have 3 questions about this new annexation possibly going through. What is the cost going to be for taxpayers? Are services in place, or are you going to have to add more services? And is there going to be affordable housing? Just some things to think about.
Thank you, Chrissy.
That's what we're here.
That's going to be our discussion. All right, I'll close the public comments period. We have a presentation from Jordan Mathis from the Bear River Health Department and Councilmember Lyle Vance. And we're going to be discussing the on-site wastewater permitting in and around the city limits. So Jordan?
He's not here.
Not here yet. Okay, so can you carry this discussion a little bit?
BMD 4416 NFL XA16.
Let's see.
Now, this,
Do it from up here.
I was looking at
Yeah.
your presentation, and these slides are the same one he presented to us about a month ago.
They are. They're the same. It's the same presentation. So I think if we go through and discuss it, and then we'll work on it together, all of us work on it together, and hopefully Jordan will, maybe he got caught up or something.
Glad that Mark is here with us too, so that when we start talking about numbers and that kind of stuff, that we're in the right area and that type of stuff. I'm going to let Jordan go ahead and cover this stuff. I have no idea what he wanted to cover. So I can start on the number side of it until he gets here. Can you go ahead, Cynthia, and go to these papers that we've already handed out so that everybody, the public out in the audience, can see the numbers we're looking at. If you can start with the map. So I've been thinking about these numbers today. This is kind of like talking about a loan when you're not directly involved with it. So this is pretty much impromptu till Jordan gets here. Just to get everybody back in the same area of understanding where this thing's at, is we've got Mark Allred, who is building a bunch of houses out here past the freeway on the west side. You can see this up on the map up here. That blue area. You can see the houses along 8400 West. And what's going on is he's went to the county, and I believe, you want to show this one right here? I went out and took a picture of this thing. This is how many lots are being put in behind those houses that are already built. So you can see that we got a little city coming up out there. And this area out here, I'm concerned about it. I mean, I grew up in the area, and it's pretty alkali and and clay, the ground composition. I grew up in that same area, and it's a great place to put houses because nothing ever really was produced on that land agriculturally wise. And that's why it's perfect to be putting houses on it. But yet, it's just a mile out of town is what it is. So to get services out there, you can see this map here. We've had Chris, our city attorney, city engineer, thank you. You can see the blue line, and that dictates where the sewer and where the water is going to be coming across the freeway. And we're picking that spot right now because that's where our drainage water comes under the freeway. So the cost is going to be most minimal at that point. If we come across there and come down and go straight across, the cost of that, according to the city engineer, can you pull that up, Cynthia, the numbers?
Yeah.
Drop that down a little bit. You can see the water system coming across. You can see the, I don't see the burrowing.
The boring is number 2,
There we go.
20-inch.
$200,000 to come across the freeway, underneath the freeway. So you can see that the boring is included in this thing, and then the sewer system, you can see that they've actually got a sewer pump station involved at $300,000. And this is all preliminary stuff. This is just talk at this point. There's no exact place where the sewer is actually going to go. This is the best estimate of where our engineer has constructed it, to keep the cost down and that type of stuff. So you can see the subtotal is 2.6 million. I'm talking rough numbers here. And then he's got a 30% plus or minus contingency. And if you've got questions, please ask him why we're going. 2.6, then he puts a 30% contingency on there. This is what engineers do to protect themselves. This is Lyle Vance talking. And so he's got 3.4 for the total project, where in reality, it's 2.6 is what it is. And I don't know, Mark, if you're willing to share this with us, but Mark puts his own roads in, you put your own sewer lines in and that type of stuff. You said you ran your own numbers. Are you willing to share what you came up with?
They've come through his, the 3.4 is, like you said,
Mark?
exaggerated with what's
Mark?
there.
Could we have, I'm only thinking of the person who's going to be taking taking the minutes. If you can come up here and just, they'll be able to hear you a lot better.
So as you look at this, it's, and this rolls back to, a lot of this stuff, depending on what you end up doing. Some of it's going to be going through existing fields that don't require the gravel backfill at this time. You can bed it, you can do, there'll be future roads in that, but like back in the day in the 98, 99, when we run the sewer, my father and I ran the sewer from McDonald's up to Spring Acres up on the hill. And at that time, we ran it up through there to install it. At that time, it was before I bought all of my equipment and stuff. So Clayton Grover actually installed, that portion of it. And it was about a third the cost of what it would have been just running down a city street with gravel compaction, all this stuff. You still set your manholes and do. So as we look at the numbers here, one of the things to look at is that, the proposed area of the line, the footages, you can probably shave some numbers and save some money in one place. The boring, a couple of things, the lift station, it depends on what the backfill material, that really changes, on your pricing. The water isn't too, complicated and stuff. The one section will be down through the road, the other stuff would be a future road. The sewer coming down through the road, all of that stuff will be, it's within the right of ways. It would be gravel backfill compaction. One of the things you need to look at or understand is, where they say the proposed sewer stuff here, that's there. Thank you.
The lift
Don't touch
station.
the screen, Mark. But anyway, this, where this is, what you got a picture is the sewer here is at a different elevation than out here. So you have to have the pump station pump the sewer. So none along here, even though you put that sewer in, there's nowhere along there you can just attach to that, because that is high pressure and will pump it up and, push it into those lines. The other stuff will gravity feed back out to this, and like where they're proposing, something that I see in the future is a good situation, because in the future, that area where it's falling to, that's where the water flows naturally, and does. And so it's roughed out, it's a good design. The biggest thing is where, I guess, pricing and the situation is with where we're at. One of the hiccups out there is just what you said, the groundwater in the spring. We have no bids on here, no pricing for storm drain, and what and where and how that would be work into these figures. Just getting sewer and water out there, it's the big hiccup, we think. But it's also the big problem out there is actually the drainage, UDOT's drainage, and we've talked quite a bit with Paul Fulgham. And where the water route before McDonald's and that, we had a back up in the houses, back by the new car wash. And that stuff heads out to this same 8400 ditch. And so this spring, we had a lot of water in the retention ponds and the stuff and that coming through. So one of the hiccups with this whole thing is they need to address and look at the storm drain situation. And also, UDOT was very accountable for the water, and you get over the freeway from McDonald's and that fields and the separation there, we've owned this long enough that when you watch the water table, one of the guys is a buddy of mine that has a well there and has the field drain on his property that runs past McDonald's. And it is, it's approximately in here that I'm talking, right in that area, that this water from the freeway backs up on the UDOT road, and then it subs over into the property that I bought. And there's two different properties there's 10 months that this property is awesome. There's 2 months that during the spring, when that backs up, about a day and a half later, when it backs up to the UDOT road, it starts surfacing underneath the road, comes, and it'll flow literally not through just the subdivisions or what I've built. It's the old houses along there and that. It flows through the property rather than getting into the 8400 drainage ditch that is where McDonald's and stuff drains too, and that is UDOT and Box Elder County. And Box Elder County is not very accountable for their water. When we went through this, we got there and there was 2 sandbags in the culvert crossing that 11200 right here and blocking that. Sometime a farmer had put them in there to back up and pump out of it. Well, he never took them out. So you got all this water backing up. It's cool during when they're irrigating, but it really sucks when it's backing up in the spring and then it flows under the road. So one of the things with this is we really have to look at, getting Box Elder County. UDOT's been accountable. They came, cleaned it out. They pulled the thing through their culvert, cleaned it out, come into Box Elder County's part, about 100 feet, dug the ditch, cleaned it out, flowing good. Don't know how that'll act this spring when we get the runoff again that way.
Before we get way into the weeds here, let me just back off a little bit of this thing. So the idea behind this thing is we've got water problems out there. Again, I started out talking about being an alkali, being a clay, area as far as the soil content and that type of stuff. So there was a problem that existed over in the Vernal area, Roosevelt and that type of stuff. I mean, we sent that article out that explained that situation. I'm concerned as a city councilman that we're going to have the same problem here because the perk, I don't know how we got a percolation test out there the way it is. I mean, so anyway, I think we could have sewer problems out there if we don't look at annexing them into the city and bringing that and getting sewer out there to try to get that cleaned up. We've got the runoff that you're talking about, and we also got secondary water problems that we got to be talking about too. And that's going to have to be, worked out one way or another.
I think with his numbers, when you look at, what are we doing with the storm drain, then you look at this, his 30%, the contingency on that probably is more realistically at being $3.5 million roughly, because we do have to address some,
Okay.
the water. The secondary water is going to be the same thing, with what we do there. You look at that and what we will have to do out there, it's like how and what will they approach that with? And we have been doing the bigger lots and that out there, but I met with the geotech company yesterday, and we're doing this stuff and the perk on that. So we'll have the results in another, probably about 2 weeks realistically on the 21 acres. But we've also.
We'll end up with, septic tanks out there and that type of stuff. Let's
Yeah.
ask Jordan to.
Jordan, could you,
Jordan's on his way.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay, so, the idea here is that Vernal, Roosevelt, basically the state came in on the cities and made them basically get sewer out to that property. And I'm afraid of that happening in this area too, because they're a mile away from us, and we ought to be trying to find a way to make it happen if we can make it happen. But the cost have got to be realistic, and that's what we're trying to figure out here. Christie asked the question, what's the cost to the taxpayers? This needs to be done at the cost of the developer going out there. And so what we were talking about to help offset some of the cost, Mark's had to purchase water hookups and that type of stuff from Corinne Water. And, he could sell that and put that towards this 2.6 million. There'd be still 1.3 million still hanging out there that Mark's got to come up with if this thing's going to happen. And then hopefully we'd be talking about a pioneer agreement, which we've never done in Tremont before. A pioneer agreement is something where, Mark fronts the cost to put that system in out there. And then over time, what happens is anybody that hooks into that, whether it be water, sewer, whatever, when instead of the city receiving an impact fee, he would get the impact fee until he was reimbursed back. That's what a pioneer agreement is. And that way, it might make it more palatable to find a way to make it work. But I think the numbers kind of come together as far as sewer and water, but, the drainage and that type of stuff, how can you drain something that there's nowhere to get it drained off to? There's 2 weeks out of the year. I grew up out in South Tremont, and there's 2 weeks where we're in trouble. You're like in a lake is what you're in until
That's the thing, and like they said, Paul was saying with what you guys are putting in from this stuff inwards from McDonald's, that really needs to be addressed on a county, UDOT, Tremont, whatever level, to get that flow, because like right now, when we're dealing with Box Elder County, and we've been going through to get this done, and like I told Lyle, I'm open to this, but I'm not looking to be annexed, just to where everybody knows. I would prefer to not be annexed. I would prefer to follow through, develop, do the septics, do that way, but I also see the benefit to getting the sewer out there, getting the things taken care of, and the other. I only own right now 21 more acres. We had 44, we had this last 21, and that isn't enough land to justify this without really figuring out, well, we've got to get a second landowner out there, get something else to be able to help with some of this and the costs. But like I said, we've been part of this and part of the valley and doing, and I understand like the flow and all of those things. It's just, there's a lot to this, and we're a long ways away from putting something like this together. But it's also, it needs to be in the works. There's other subdivisions that's come in, and West Corinne's scared to death of how much water they'll use. And if they'd annexed into Tremont and had this situation, Tremont and with the secondary and the other would do. One of the things from my standpoint is, good, bad, or whatever, I have 21 water taps with that, or 21 irrigation shares with the 21 acres. So we'll come in, and the county doesn't want that. They don't need that. They don't require that. Paul, Tremont City, you guys require it. So when I come in and annex, or if I was to choose to annex in, however they vote, that is, the secondary water, I would have to give that to the city. So that is also taking away from my fundage to be able to help pay for this. And so there's a lot that has to be worked through, and that 21 water, irrigation water shares, the percent on these big lots is probably gonna be, 15 or 18 of those. So that's 150, 180 grand.
But you're addressing us, so
Sorry.
you're addressing
Yeah.
us.
So, and then the offset of this thing is that, the state came in over in Vernal and Roosevelt and made the city, and they had to find ways to pay for the sewer system to be brought out to that area that was basically ignored when they came in to try to get annexed into the city. And I'm afraid, from a liability position, that, we need to seriously look at this thing so that we're not open for, some suit down the road from the state making the taxpayers, pay for a system to go out there that we should have been really looking at to begin with.
I think there's, it is kind of a very unique soil type out there. The soil type is not the same as it is in a lot of the other area, and so we have to consider that, and you're doing the perk tests now. This is a great time to do a perk test because, it's not the same as a perk test in February. So I know the health department has been talking about this quite a bit, and their preference is that, that we do go with the system instead of the septic system, and instead of septic tanks out there. And the state also recognizes that this is sort of a touchy area, when it comes to groundwater and all that kind of thing. So there's the potential that there could be some help, I wouldn't sort of say that's what's going to happen, but that's some of the talk that's going on right now. And, and so I think we've got to kind of, I don't know your time frame. I know you're probably anxious to get going.
That's what I wanted to ask Mark, is what your time frame is. If you want to get going,
You've already went past the time frame. So I had a deadline to buy the water, and we talked about this. We presented things on the 6th of July. And so and we're talking quite a bit. I've got 35 water taps now. I went ahead and bought them because I'm just like, I have been on the list for 6 years. I didn't, we don't know how or this ever gonna come together. And it's like, I couldn't not buy them and then wait. And so we extended, They didn't vote, you know, you said yes, you haven't said no. I understand, you know, we're waiting on this and doing, but I bought the West Kern water taps, I just had to, and it's gonna cost me, and then it cost me monthly. But we just decided, you know what, it's hard, and we can look elsewhere for land to develop with those water taps. They're valuable. I can, you know, turn around and resell them, and I've sold some in the past to help pay for the actual payments, the water bill, because with their water, you get 35 water bills every month. So the minute I buy them, I pay that. So I did that.
How much do they charge you per tap when you're not even hooked into them?
Yeah, it's 34,000 a tap. So I got 35 taps.
But no, they charge you a monthly fee to,
And it's $60. I think it's went up to 60. I don't usually pay.
60
my wife
times
pays
32 is
more.
what it's costing you per month just to be sitting on them. So, yeah, that's what this whole meeting's about, is to tell you that we're cutting loose, that we don't think it's a good idea to annex it and try to get water and sewer out to you so you can get going, or we need to decide if we need to keep pursuing this thing or not. That's really what this whole meeting is about tonight. I wish Jordan was here.
Do you- could
Jordan
you-
was making a comment about the state being aware of this, and that they might be willing to give a grant, and I don't know how much we're talking about. That might help offset what needs to be paid from the state right up front, so that we can get this thing done and try to keep the cost down.
Yeah, I know there's been discussion on both sides. You know, the council's been discussing all the sides to this thing. I think we need to, in talking to Jordan today, Lyle mentioned that the state may be willing to, like I said, the state recognizes the soil type and the situation that we have out there. And so they may be willing to step up and help out. But that's a may, and we don't know that yet.
Like you said,
And so,
I'm good. Like I said, I see the point of this. I'm not against it.
Yeah.
I have very little. 21 acres isn't enough to pay for that, with the size of lots. Now, sure, we go out there, the first thing we do the density, we change it, and we get a bunch of, whatever approved for multifamily, do the stuff. That isn't really what I do. I build on bigger lots, I build bigger houses, I do that stuff. And so I'm good with not doing that, but we have to look at it. The minute Lyle mentions it, my mind starts doing, I'm like, I'm wanting to taper down with this stuff. But I start looking at the other property around there, some just changed hands that's close to that. But, there's ways to make this work, but you said it may take 3 different things to come up with $1 million to put this together, and maybe the grant is there. Mark Reese, I know he would love to see this go and not have to fight the septic systems and the other stuff. We've spent many times conversing about this, and it's just, there's times of years that you go out there, and right now I can guarantee you I can meet the state laws.
That's what I
And
said.
there are things,
Yeah,
no
right now
problem,
you would.
with what they did. It's like you said, there's that 2 months out of the year, but I got a crop in there. I can't go back against a farmer that I'm sharecropping with and go out in his fields, because we did that before, and he had me hand shoveling out there because I have no respect for the crop. And I've learned to respect the crop. I've tried to, but it's hard. But I just think you just vote on what you do, and you're not gonna hurt my feelings. You guys just decide what you do, and we'll move forward trying to work through what we need to.
Well, we need to be realistic. I mean, a time frame. I mean, it takes forever for government to work. The private sector is one thing. We all run and do what we need to do to make things happen, but to try to get the state to tell us how much the grant's going to be and how that works, I don't know how much time we're talking about on our end.
3 to 5 years from being able to put it all together.
And if that's the case,
without personal
we ought to cut loose and let you go ahead and do what you're going to do,
money. It's kind of hard, but, I see, Larry, sorry.
I just, if we don't do it and you put it all in, then we're just not gonna do that area, right?
Yeah.
We're
We'd stop
never
short of
gonna-
that. We'd stop short of that.
Then it's a big mess and a lot of money,
can you go back to the map?
right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, then you get into the vernal story. The the Roosevelt story where, you know, the cities, we're the closest city, so are we gonna get drug into it? I mean, that's been my concern from the very onset of this
I mean,
thing.
why doesn't the county do anything with the, like, run it to the salt trick or something?
That's, and Paul has said, this was probably, maybe it's off the record, but a future sewer plant would be very close to where that lift station was and be out that way. And it's a good situation. It's just, think about how far out that is. So we've got to do something and get it back to the one you got, get it to work while you're doing. But you said exactly the same thing, you know, it may be the state of Utah, but we also got Box Elder County that's involved in this. And, you know, the storm drain, the other stuff, we need to improve some other stuff, and they get paid taxes too, you know, they should get to participate. So I'm kind of game to do. I don't need to develop this, you know, tomorrow, but I need to pay back or get that water tap stuff back. But I have enough lots down over there that I can keep selling, do what we've had that's already approved. I've got one we're doing back and forth, because part of that is set up to be or done in Box Elder County. So the little tiny part here, this is in an old preliminary, and they will let me, there's 4 lots there, the retention pond and the other. They will let me develop that in Box Elder County, and the improvements are already in. So this will only be the lower part and half of the road going out there.
Cynthia, can you pull up that plot map that we had, that one right there? So is that area, Mark? That little knob that's coming out at the north end?
So the purple lots, 22. So if you look, this 23, 4, and 5, that's already all approved. But we're just having a little communications about this retention pond, because it's got water from not just my subdivision, it's getting UDOT and Box Elder County water in it. And so we're just discussing an improvement there with Box Elder County. And so, you know, but that lot 27 and 8, all of that stuff, Box Elder County will let me develop. I've just got to put the bond in or argue with them enough to get that retention pond done. So everything we're talking is just that way of this, and that's the 21 acres. Half of the road is in the already approved stuff. The other half is in this, but it's still enough to get the improvements there. The biggest hiccup I see is the other landowner we've got to come through with the water. You know, he's really wants to see the water, the sewer, and the freeway before he agrees to annex. We could do this and vote this all in and still can't get the water that way. We can get the sewer, you know, because you went around, it's within, you know, the other things. But like I said, it's just one of them things that's so close, but in the long run, 5 years from now, you know, what you're doing right now is huge. And we may not do this for 2 to 5 years. We may not need to develop it. But, you know, the interest drops down, they go, I'm gonna want to get my money back out of that field. But, you know, I bought it 3 to 5 years ago with the rules we had then. It's just, you know, I understand where you're coming from. I wanna see, you know, this improve that way also. We don't have a problem with the water. You know?
Would you say then, we just keep pursuing, trying to figure out what numbers are and see if we can find resolves to the drainage and the secondary water? And you know, when you say enough's enough, because really, the county's not gonna work with you until we say, no, we're not annexing you.
Yeah, that's right where we're at. And so if you know you're gonna say, you know, yes, just vote and say yes if you can. If you know you gotta have more time. I don't know what to tell you, and I'm good kind of either way. I don't want to get annexed. I really don't. I just want to finish my thing and move on. But I understand where you're coming from and what's there. And so you guys, it's up to you to.
Well, and I think that, you know, unfortunately, Lyle's 100% correct. You know, government moves at a snail's pace sometimes, but we understand too that you've got money on the line and we need to make a decision and we need to move forward. Without divulging too much, there are things in the works, kind of big things in the works that kind of change the dynamic if it comes to fruition. And so I think that if you're sort of willing to let this ride for a little while, I'm not talking a long time, but I'm talking maybe letting it ride for a little while. And then we come back with more information that might change the dynamic a little bit. And so,
So are we talking 2 weeks, 2 months?
yeah, no, I'm talking after the 1st of August, we should know something.
Well, that's tomorrow.
That's Tuesday, that's 2 days.
Let's go a month or something before we, yeah.
September
He's gonna call you at midnight.
I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to put it all out on the table here as much as I dare put out on the table.
No, I think I'm
And,
good with that to do. I mean, I'm going to somewhere in the middle of the ocean for 2 weeks, and so I'm good till the 12th to 15th.
okay,
And my wife's not here because of that, and I'm just like, could we not have did this? But it's our 40th anniversary, and so I'm good with tabling it to the 1st of September. If we need to do something sooner with the county.
we'll have more discussion. We're going to have more discussion
We
tonight.
can look at it and see. I think we need to talk to UDOT and because UDOT they were great. And they are accountable for the water backing up, that it is their problem. So they're kind of accountable. Derek, the Box Elder crews, we need to talk to them, and it's just like you said, Box Elder County, the state, maybe getting something set up to be able to do some of that. Maybe we go together and get it under the freeway in the place or two that's concerning some of the other. I'm kind of game, but it's just, I'm doing it to make money. But we also, I like this town. I was born in the old hospital over here. I'm about as much
So was
this
I.
town as you
Yeah.
can be. And so it's like, but I still got to make money, because I
Well-
really like to fight sometimes, and it don't help a lot of times, that.
Do any of the Jeff?
I have a number of items relative to this. I began investigating the situation before I went on a recent trip and then today also. And there's more to be done yet. I'm not done working with some health department officials back in that area that's been mentioned several times in Roosevelt and working with the local ones here and working with the county and some others who I've already had meetings with, finding out some information. And when you're trying to resolve a problem, first you need to know what the problem is. So some history. This subdivision up here did not follow the correct process to get approved by the county. And I met with Marcus Wager from the county planner, to discuss that. He's the one who divulged that to me, is they had an outdated annexation map for our city. So they didn't realize that our annexation map went out that far. So they just looked at it. If an area is unzoned and the county has not zoned that area, then they allow the construction to take place without checking with the city. They just didn't know. So recently, Jeff Sedal had met with him and has gotten him an updated annexation map, so he's aware that it didn't follow the process it should have followed. So hopefully that's resolved for the future case, because they didn't come to us on that one. So FYI on that. I've also spoken with Mark Reese on the phone here. That was back on the 22nd. And we talked for a little while, and he alerted me to Jordan Mathis and the information there. And he sent me what you all received in the email, so it had the article that we're really talking about Roosevelt, not Vernal, in this whole situation. And the article explained quite a bit, and that's what I'm finding out from the people involved too, is the article was written pretty well as to what was going on there. So when this process takes place, it's not only the county who approves it, but the health department has to approve these septic systems. So if we're perceiving that these septic systems are ineffective, not going to work, and are going to fail in 2 or 3 years, they shouldn't be approved. That's an issue the health department has to work with. How do you create an effective program to assure that these things have some 30-year longevity or something decent, and that they don't put 13 people in a house, as you had shared with me, and that was unexpected, so there was a lot more volume going on to the septic tank. But that needs to be worked on within the health departments, probably statewide, to try and resolve that issue. So that's another problem that needs to be addressed, so that bad situations don't arise like it did in Roosevelt. Those need to be prevented so the onus doesn't fall on the state. In talking to the people I've spoken to, they're not aware of the state mandating the city of Roosevelt doing this. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. They're unaware. And I haven't met anybody or talked to anybody yet who is aware of that having taken place. So when I hear that the state forced, no, I'm not aware of the state forcing, but if you have a state statute or regulation, please. The main one that I've been informed of is Rule R317-4, on-site wastewater systems. And I haven't seen a forcing of that type of situation in there yet, but I'm still reading, trying to make sure I digest everything that's going on there. In the article, a number of things that are stated and really are stated repeatedly in that article. Duchesne County could impose a moratorium on residential construction in its unincorporated Hancock Cove until the subdivided agricultural area can be sewered. So apparently, if this is correct, health departments, counties could do this, a moratorium to try and, again, avoid the problem. Because, of course, we'd prefer to prevent a problem as opposed to responding after a problem is created. So that goes on. So some great information from Mr. Reese and the health department. Some of the comments that were made at the last meeting, and these are quotes, 3 years later had brown water after the subdivision had gone in there in Roosevelt. The state came in after these people started getting sick from bad water and made Vernal City bring them in. And again, nobody else is aware of the state making Roosevelt, let alone Vernal, having to do this and bring sewer at their expense. You know, it was $6 million that it cost the city. No, it wasn't. If you read the article, the vast majority of the funding was through grants from multiple entities, millions of dollars from each entity. So it was covered in that way. So I'm glad to hear the conversation that was just taking place of that's a potential to help with this situation. So in the future, yeah, I think areas should have better systems to avoid the septic system failures and having those problems, without a doubt. I'm on board with that. But those are things that need to be done. And hearing at the last meeting that if this subdivision is within 3 miles of a city, that the city would be forced, I haven't seen that anywhere, and neither has anybody I've spoken to. So there are a number of points of facts here that hopefully when we make a decision, it's an informed one. Now, the person that I just got the phone number for that really is expected to have more history on this, and I won't find it quick, but it's a Mr. Brown, who was in charge of, he was the environmental director down in the Tri-County Health District. At the time of this event, I spoke to the current director today via phone, and he said, no, you really need to talk to Mr. Brown because he is the history. He is a guru. And so I've got his phone number, and I'll try and contact him tomorrow morning because I just got it about 5 o'clock. So I'll continue to investigate this, and when ultimately we do make a decision, again, hopefully it's a truly informed decision, and we have all the information we need.
No.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else have a comment?
The annexation process is several steps. And if we were to come in and say, we want to keep moving forward with looking at annexation, it doesn't mean we're annexing, right? It just means we're going to continue moving forward. There could be a hiccup any time along that process, and we decide it's not the right way to go. Am I correct in my assumption?
With my experience, that's correct.
Yeah. So I think after you have some meetings and everything and figure out what's going on, we just need some more information. But I think we need to still keep moving forward until we find out that it doesn't make sense. You know, if it doesn't make sense, then
And right now, we got a September 1st cutoff time.
I think we can gather a lot of this data that council members have been talking of, getting that put together, and like I said, there's other things that are in the works, and so I think when we get more information, we'll be able to give a more solid, if you're okay with us working on this for a month, and then coming back the 1st of September and with some sort of a direction for you, because, I get it. I know what you're, in a small way, I know what you're going through. So, I think that time is of the essence here, but we need to get more information, and we just want the best product. What we want is the best product for the people that are going to be purchasing from you. We want the best, situation for all of us, you included. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, Mark. If that's if you're willing to go a month and let us do this research and everything and come back with a decision for you, then I think that seems like a fair,
Yeah, I think it's fair, and like I said, if you follow down through with the rest of the stuff, because I think there's a lot of options. It's just, like I said, it's gonna be the timing.
yeah.
Who would look towards, because there's a lot of stuff that could be fixed with this. There's also, who would look towards the grants and the stuff, because if there was a lot of
There's
grants,
potential
they have
state
different things.
funding. I think
And with the
Councilmember
state
Holt,
and the others,
referred to that, and,
and in the long run,
yeah.
it would be a good situation if, for there to be a sewer system out there, and if Tremont's gonna grow and do it, that is, that's just something Paul brought up, because he's studied and seen and doing what's there. Of course, he's gonna retire on us and throw his hat to somebody else, but, Paul knows what's going on with a lot of that, and he foresees a lot farther in the future than a lot of people.
So, just really quick, Jordan Mathis, thanks for coming. Sorry, we told you the wrong time, I guess. I don't know what happened. We're at the tail end of our meeting at this point. We just have one question now. You mentioned that maybe the state would participate in grants. Do you have any idea how much they might be willing to go on a grant?
It all just depends on what the application looks like. So my experience in the past in working with municipalities is putting together the best possible application, working with your engineer to say, here's what we anticipate the cost would be, here's what a developer is planning to put in, here's what the city is willing to put in, here's how we're going to fund the ongoing operation and maintenance of this, here's what our impact fee structure, here's how that's going to work towards paying back, that they always, I can tell you, in going to water, they always push a loan portion. That's how they continue to keep the program going, is through the interest that they get off these loans, so that they can do some of the grants and things like that. So they push that, but I think just sitting down and putting together an application and you strengthen your application with having a strong public health cause for it. Now, sewer is a foundational part of public health, but I think we can make a pretty strong case that there's pressure for development, and development will probably happen in the area. What do we want that to look like? We want it to be in a sustainable fashion. And that's where the health department can say, we feel very strongly that this is a better form of development than on-site wastewater systems.
So Jordan, just to kind of introduce, sorry, I should have introduced you. You are our current Box Elder County Health.
Yeah, I'm the director of the Bear River Health Department that covers.
And when this happened back in the Vernal Roosevelt area and that type of stuff, what was your position back there?
I was the director at the time.
You were director of that county, Duchesne County, when that happened. Are you aware of a Mr. Brown being involved with this thing?
Darren Brown?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so did the state come in and mandate all these corrections?
No.
Who mandated the corrections?
Nobody mandated the corrections. The reality is, when you have individuals that are struggling to live in their home due to backing sewage, we as government have a responsibility to respond.
Okay, so it was the local entities that,
It was me working with Roosevelt City, working with Duchesne County, and then going to the Water Quality Board, CIB Board, and trying to figure out what we were going to do, pulling in a private engineering firm to help guide us through that and help with the application process. Nobody mandated it. It was just, you can't, in the United States of America, you can't have people living in their crap. That's the reality. We don't do that in the United States of America. They do it in other countries. That's not how we live here. That's why we have the life that we have, is because we don't have to think about where that goes when we flush and all the diseases that come with it. That allows us to have businesses and other things like that. And so we had to do something. I wasn't gonna sit around as a director at the health department and not do something.
Okay.
Question?
I don't know if you're in the room yet, so I mentioned, so the health department approves these septic systems to be placed in, and yet we're hearing of situations where they're not effective in a relatively short period of time, 2 to 3 years in that case down there. So how do these get approved in such a situation? Why are they approved? Why are they not disapproved because they won't work in that area?
Well, I think the reality is we don't know the future all the time and how well they work. And I can speculate on why some of these things, particularly in that area, didn't work out. But I think the reality is I believe in looking back over it, there was a strong push on development pressure to push for development. Many of that subdivision was developed during a boom cycle in a boom and bust economy out in the Uinta Basin. So I think there was some pressure. I think there was some change. I know there was change in land use around it, between irrigation, between the introduction of unmetered irrigation to that subdivision post. Those are things that when we issue a permit, we can't that they were going to introduce pressurized unmetered irrigation that would introduce groundwater to that area that would potentially impact their ability. Does that make sense?
It does, but it leads to another question, and forgive me, is it the Beckham subdivision? Is that the other one adjacent to this?
It's the same subdivision, isn't it, Mark?
Different phases.
Isn't the whole area Beckham subdivision? Is that what you've named it? That whole area?
So the Beckham subdivision that's there now, is there a risk of the failure there after they've been approved?
I would have to defer to Mark Grease on that.
Yes, there's a risk of failure with any system.
Okay, if the risk is high, and you guys have to figure out how substantive that is, why is the system permitted? Why are there not safeguards to avoid that situation? Gee, it's this soil type, it's high water table, and whatever other variables are involved. Why does the system not address that?
So, do you want to come up? Because you can speak to this a little bit better, but I'll share a little bit.
No, he doesn't want to come up.
Mark is a licensed environmental health scientist, and Mark operates within the confines of state rule. State rule what? 317-4. Okay? So he makes his decisions based off of that rule right there, right? Any alteration, if we decide to make decisions outside of that, we have to have strong scientific evidence for why we would require something other than that right there.
Okay.
Right? And unfortunately, sometimes that scientific evidence comes when we experience something that is a result of a failure of that working.
So it's kind of like the National Weather Service predicting weather. Even with more modern science, we're still not at that level of capability to identify all the variables and where we're at to say, yes, this is a high-level risk, and so we're not permitting it at this point. And that the state regulation involved in this is at a lower level, but that you have the authority to go above it if you have the scientific evidence.
Yes.
But in cases like this, if there's a substantive risk in what's already there or what would be developed, you don't have enough science yet to say that. So what happened in Roosevelt? The subdivision gets developed, and if I've read and listened to people correctly who I've been contacting, 3 years later it fails. And apparently they didn't have the science back then in 2014 or whatever it was being built to make that determination.
or the predictability of the secondary water system, you know, and the additional water being applied to that area, which contributed to the failure of the septic systems.
I'm an idealist, so and I used to run state agency in a federal program in DC, and I got hammered by Congress all the time on this type of thing, being able to explain. And I get the scientific evidence. I'm an idealist, so I'm just hopeful that you all will be able to put together a program where you can plug in the variables and the data that you have, and it would tell you, oh, we're at this level of risk.
Well, I can tell you right now, Mark and I and one of our other colleagues worked with Scott Lyons on a scope of work to do an on-site wastewater density study for Box Elder County. That's probably still 2 years out before we get anything from that, if we can get it moving as quick as we'd like. So we're trying to get data that says, how do we develop appropriately in Box Elder County, given the soil types and given groundwater and all those other things? But we have to have that data before we can anchor to a policy and say, this is what we're going to do. Otherwise, we just anchor to that right there. We're working on it, and we're working with the county to try to do that, but
Which the ground content, the soil content switches from acre to acre. I mean, I don't know how you can come up with a solution with what you're talking about there. I mean, you get over in Elwood, it's straight sand. You go out in South Tremont and it's straight clay, and it'll be pockets of sand in between. I don't know how anybody can come up with some scientific.
I'm encouraged by what you just said, so please, I want to support that by all means. But I'm hopeful that it will get to that point where we can determine the risks, because really what I'm seeing is the county failed to follow their own policy when they allowed the subdivision that's already there. They're allowing more development in an area that may well be a high-risk area for this type of disaster to occur. So I'm distressed about the county not addressing this. And I said it before you came in the article repeatedly, almost under every picture, they talk about why doesn't the county do a moratorium on construction in that area until there's a sewer system or something that will better, I hate to say guarantee, but more likely guarantee that you won't have a high-risk situation become a reality. But then also that your department is not there yet to be able to judge the level of risk to decide when you will permit and not permit. So the city's not even involved yet, and yet the problems have been created. And I'm glad to hear there's no mandate, because the city shouldn't be held accountable when they weren't even involved in the approval of these things being constructed. So thank you. I'm glad to hear there's no mandate. But still, I understand the goal is to avoid, and I won't use the same terminology, but being in waste deep in waste, at your home. So I get that, and I support that. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Wes, do you have anything to
Oh,
comment?
Blair's got something.
Blair.
I got
Blair.
something. I mean, first of all, I don't think the city's got the funds to just drop it. I think it has to go to Mark or somebody or somehow get it. But that subdivision, that whole area is still gonna impact the city with fire response, with the people coming in and being here. Is the only difference is we won't have a say. And we can talk about the septic tanks, but if we can do it and it doesn't cost us money, it eliminates the problems that we just talked about with them septic tanks. And we probably need to do that closer. I don't want to make it bigger and everything, but if Mark's putting them in, he's not the only one. They still impact us tremendously. Maybe the police department don't go there, but the fire department does. And so why don't we have a say of where the hydrants are and where everything? Is there water system? Does Corinne have fire hydrants?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so they just follow it. West Corinne has, the water out there, and then we install the hydrants, but it end up being every, within a 500-foot circle of the homes, and so.
I'm just saying it still impacts us, so I think I agree with, you know, even like Christie or Jeff on, I don't think we're gonna have the funds to do it, but I mean, that just, if you put that sewer line clear down there, that makes that whole area accessible for sewer and everything down the road. Water lines are a little easier to just run where they go. But not that we wanna make it bigger, but it eliminates them problems.
That's quite a ways out of our annexation area. It's within, I can't remember.
Well, we go
Our
over to
annexation
Salt
area
Creek.
goes to 9200 west.
Oh, we do go to South
It's
Creek.
inside
That's
the
right,
annexation.
This only
92.
is 1.2 miles.
Future annexation.
Future annexation.
Long ways, but
And clear on 8800 north, right?
92.
92?
92 was where we go, the next road
10,
over.
yeah.
That's 10,400.
So 10-4, yeah.
Mayor, another point of information, just is funding is discussed in this, and not whether we annex or not. In the Roosevelt situation, two different state entities provided $5.7 million in grants, no interest loans.
Well, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah,
is
it was
what-
very substantive.
And if it looks like it's an area that's high risk, the chance of getting some funding sounds like it might increase if it's considered a high-risk area.
And I won't presume to tell the council what to do, but, I mean, you can always go to the board and find out what you can get and what that split of grant and loan is, and make a determination after that. Say,
That's all this, this background work we need to do is during this next month.
Mayor,
And I'm happy to help through that application process.
Okay. Yeah, Bill?
if you don't mind, I have a question. In your presentation, and we're probably not going to get into the presentation at this point. It sounds like they've already seen it, but you have a slide here that talks about, like, I'm guessing it's either part of the code or a policy 5.1. Yeah, talking about,
Yeah.
I-
So that is the only on-site wastewater regulation that the Board of Health for the Bear River Health Department has instituted.
Okay.
And we recently did that to allow cities in this situation to determine how they wanted to grow in areas adjacent to their municipal sewer.
So this says in 5.1.2 that for subdivisions, the standard is 150 feet multiplied by the number of proposed building lots. If I'm looking at this picture correctly, I counted about 52 units in the Beckham's Edge subdivision. Does that sound about right?
What?
52?
Units?
Or, I'm sorry, spaces?
There's, like, that was one of my questions, what was the density of the place we're talking about?
It's this one here.
What I'm doing in that subdivision, there's only 22 lots in the first portion of it. So you're talking, the first is 44 acres, and there's less than 30 lots at 44 acres. So they're big lots, they have enough room to do the secondary, filtering system if they need, or the attic growth. A lot of those lots are acre and 3/4, so it isn't a normal trying to do the half acre smallest, it'd be lots that you can do and develop. They are bigger lots, and that's what we've set up to do. The 21 acres that we're proposing is 21 acres, which would be 27 lots, I think, with the retention pond. So they would be 0.8 to 0.9 of an acre per lot. So they are big lots, that way compared to what, you could go down to. But that's the thing, with what's there. And the density of were they doing bigger lots, or were they half acres? Or
They were acre
bigger?
lots.
They were acres.
Yeah.
So it is comparable that way with what they were dealing with, and they did have the extra to put another set of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Changes
So-
or do in if they needed to enlarge it, but, you know what I mean? So there is that fallback, and, most of this stuff, like you said, we did this for a long time, we've had septics, we have dealt with other properties and that stuff through the valley here and the different things, and, from Elwood to here, we've dealt with all the different types of soils and that. And like you said, the sewer is great. I'd love to see the sewer get out there and actually flow away from the property. You bed the sewer line with a nice 3/4 rock, you get everything done, it drains the ground around it. And we have the only subdivision in Elwood that has a real storm drain, fill drain and stuff that we adapted and goes to the lab. And it's the only place in Elwood that the groundwater, it's dropped 2 or 3 feet. Because we looked at the future, did and adjusted it. And so like you said, there's working together, but I can guarantee you that Mark didn't let me get away with anything out there to be able to do and put these in. And like this phase, he told me, he said, no, I want a test hole on every lot, maybe before it was a test hole on, you know what I mean?
So
this and this.
my question really is more about the policy and procedure from the health department level. If they are within that certain number of feet, does the health department then kind of mandate that they hook onto the sewer system, whether or not you annex?
We don't mandate how cities determine that. What we mandate is, for instance, in this instance, we would say, we need a letter from Tremont City saying that they will not allow you to connect before we will even consider feasibility.
So that's 5.1.3, I think, up here, that the city determines that. But the question I have is, because the language seems to be affirmative shall connect, it says it shall connect to public sewer when such sewer is available and for use as follows. So we determine whether or not it's available, but you determine the distance from the existing sewer system. And
You say 150 feet times the number of lots?
yeah, and I counted 52 just based on the picture that you took this picture.
Yeah.
So 52 times
150?
150 is, oh, where'd my calculator go? It was about 7,500, 7,800 linear feet. According to the estimate that we got from Chris, the water line, to do the 12-inch water line is 6,040 linear feet. Now, he's got for the pressure line, because he's got additional extra system on here, and it goes all the way down towards the bottom of or quite a ways further south. But there is sewer line up in this area, right? We do have sewer manholes and things that you could get to if you went and just took it the same distance from the water line. So he's well within, I guess what I'm saying is it appears that he's well within this requirement. The linear feet that Chris has put together is only 6,000, and the health department's requirement is 7,800.
So how many lots are you calculating? What we're talking is 21 lot or 27
So
lots, not 50.
My count is based on this picture, and I counted.
They're already done and approved, so all we're working on is 21 acres we'll either do 14 or 27 lots. And so it's like your calculations with that aren't, you know what I mean? You need to do the lots of what you're talking of annexing, not the other stuff that way. But, I understand that, but I don't think you're close enough to that on the fundage, I mean, it's just, well.
I can speak to that if you'd like me to, Georgia.
The important thing is.
We would have required that city, or that letter from the city.
Okay.
We did not have this policy.
Will get taken care of.
Okay. That's fair. Thank you. That was my question. Thank you, Mayor.
Can I ask a question? Just so I understand, sorry, Jeff. If a developer were to come in and want to put in a development within the city, let's say this was in the city, okay? So then he would put this in, the developer is responsible to hook up to our sewer, run everything to the sewer where it comes into his or her subdivision, correct?
Yes, of
Their
course.
expense. Is that right?
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
And then impact fees are to help buffer some of the impact that each house has on the community in the future.
Correct.
Okay. So I'd really like to see us come up with another way of funding, if it's not through a grant or whatnot, rather than using impact fees.
Hang on a minute.
And that's my concern.
The impact fees is broke into different areas. So you have a portion of it's sewer, a portion of it's water, a portion of it. And so what we're talking about is, Mark, we would, on a Pioneer contract, you would commit the water side of it and the sewer side of it to go pay him back because he's fronting the money, but we would get the rest of the impact fee.
So there's a couple of caveats that I would add to that. You're essentially 100% correct. The only thing I would say is that we have to have projects specifically identified in our capital facilities plan that have said that this is an area where the city is looking to expand at some point in the future. If that's the case, then impact fees apply, and it can be used, the impact fees can be used to help offset some of those expenses. So otherwise, they just go into the pool and they get used where other impact fees are required.
That would take you forever to get your money back. If you're only doing that many lots. I mean, you hope somebody else.
I couldn't hear you more, sorry.
Wouldn't it take a long time for you to get your?
Well, he doesn't get paid back just from his development.
I agree.
Yeah, the impact fees would
But
be,
it'd have to be other developments going, right?
right, if and when that ever
In
happens.
that area, not.
Right.
Yeah, it has to be, the reimbursement would be as it would come. It wouldn't benefit me on the ones I did. We would pay into the impact or do whatever, however it ends up being, pioneering agreement, you haven't did it before. So it'd be something that would be between, you guys, my attorneys, all the stuff. It'd get set up and you'd get a certain percent of it. Some has to go back to this or that. But where the big thing would be is if somebody come along there and bought, another 50 acres tied onto that, then as they do, you receive the money for the building permit, the water hookup, blah, blah, blah. We would get a little slice of that pie for a period of 7, 11, 15, whatever years that it is negotiated and done, because it's just, to try to get that improvement out there, kind of get a win-win and do. I think that's how
It could
I
be a long time, it could be a short time. It's a risk that the.
So I think, if you've got any new information we need to bring forward.
I do have a question.
Okay.
And really, Jordan, I believe it's for you, but in the case of Roosevelt, the funding came from at least two entities, the State Division of Water Quality and also the Utah Community Impact Board. Would the Community Impact Board, is that a viable option for our city to consider? And are there any other state or other funding sources you're aware of to support things like this?
The Community Impact Board's probably less feasible. Most of that is funded out of mineral lease dollars. So priority goes to communities that contribute to that. So Duchesne, Uinta County, they get a lot of those dollars to support. So they do a lot of tax in lieu things.
So if we go to the board, is what you talked about, shouldn't they have ideas to help, if there's other sources to help with the funding?
Yeah, so typically if you start an application, you're sitting down with a staffer from the Division of Water Quality, and they help advise you through the entire process. This staffer is not the board, they just help you in putting your application before the board and giving consideration for other things. It does strengthen your application to potentially have others. There's one other thing that I want to share that's somewhat unique about this community. For those that were in part of the presentation, we found bedrock at 14 feet. Right? I told you an exploration hole goes to 10 feet. That was another variable that we couldn't take into account in our determination. We didn't know that there was solid bedrock right 4 feet below where we caused them to dig.
Wow.
And so over time that filled up. Part of the reason that project was so expensive is because what Mark talked about, they actually put several feet of drain rock beneath the sewer to get all that water that had accumulated over years out of that subdivision and daylighted to it. So it was more expensive than your typical sewer because it was coming in and fixing something after the fact. Had that subdivision been sewered in the first place, that level of infrastructure wouldn't have been required. But at that point it was, and that's why for that small subdivision, you're looking at like $6 million because it was a big project to really help that community out.
The
So-
soil types around here are just so much different than that, you know, and I mean, we're, like Lyle mentioned, you know, you can go from one field to the next field and have a completely different soil type, you know, and you just that this situation right here is kind of commonly known to be, you know, high water table, percolation doesn't percolate like it would in some of the other areas in the valley and that kind of thing. So, well, let's see.
One more question,
Yeah,
too, really
for
important,
Jordan.
because timing is an issue here. So, you know, when you worked with the board before, trying to get grants and that type of stuff, what's the turnaround time with something like that?
It can be fairly quick. In this case, it wasn't as quick because the class action lawsuit against the agencies that were trying to provide relief became somewhat of a sticking point. So it slowed things down a little bit. But it can be fairly quick if you get an application in, we can get before the board. I think they only meet 4 times a year though. So making sure you hit that, and then if you get approval, then they fund it. And
Do they have kind of an open period time, you know, for applications, or is it sort of just you do it when you?
yeah, I'd have to talk to a staffer and get what that is. I just spoke with the division director and I briefly explained the situation, and he felt like there was probably some good reason to at least put together an application and put it before the board.
I'm seeking a confirmation if I'm accurate, and then other information if I'm not accurate. So at this point in time, you have no scientific evidence that would justify you going beyond the state regulation on permitting these septic tank systems in this area. Is that correct?
I'm going to defer to the scientist.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, the soil maintenance parameters.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mark or Jordan? All right. We appreciate, Lyle, we appreciate you and putting that presentation together, research that you guys have done. Jordan and Mark, thank you. Appreciate your expertise and the knowledge that you've shared with us. Okay, new council business. Discussion and possible action of accepting or denying the already annexation petition with the information that we have just discussed. Council, are we ready to, you know, I think Brett made a good point. This is something we're just, you know, this annexation process is something that will be an ongoing thing, but given the information that we have, and I guess I'm waiting to hear what you guys think.
I think we keep moving forward
I
and get
think
the
we
data.
move forward, yeah. We don't accept or deny, or we need more information.
That's kind of what that's kind of the thought I had, is let's move forward. We have the September 1st deadline, or it'll be the first council meeting in September is what it'll be. We'll go to work and get this research put together and get as much information as we can get. To be fair with Mark, we'll, you know, try to be as you know, Johnny on the spot as we can be, so.
That it?
Are you
That's
gonna
all
finish anything else in there?
I think that's.
Make a motion?
I think we need a motion to
We can make
table.
we had possible action, so we can make a motion, discussion and possible action of accepting or denying.
I make the motion that we continue forward and table the vote at this time.
Continue forward with the information
Just
gathering.
table the vote.
Yep.
Second?
A motion by Blair and seconded by Jeff. I think this one can just be a up or down.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right, Mark. That's the plan. We'll get as much information as we can get together, gathered up, and move forward and try to be as quick as we can be for your sake.
Have fun on the boat.
Yeah, 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 that's for sure. All right, good. All right, reports and comments. Reports and comments, administration reports. Do you have anything for us tonight?
I had something, but I forgot, so I'm gonna have to email you later.
Okay. DRC committee reports?
We didn't have DRC. Jeff's been out of town.
All right. This is going pretty fast. Department head, Brady, do you have anything for us tonight? Let's see, am I missing anybody? Lindsay, do you have anything for us? Okay. Let's see, council reports. Let's see, we can start over here with you, Wes.
I don't have anything. Oh, wait, I did write one thing down, didn't I? Nope, I already covered that.
Okay. Brett? Well,
Yep, I don't have anything either, but I appreciate Jordan and Mark coming tonight.
absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one thing that's probably for Bill. I was talking with, and I've talked to Brady, I've talked to Shari. The ambulance billing, we're trying to move forward to having I guess farming that out to a company. I think that needs to be, with talking with Shari, we need to do it sooner than later
Yeah.
because she needs to catch up. And
Yeah, we're on it.
Brady's working on it, but
Please.
For the council, it will be our proposal going forward that with Shari having a known plan, she does her ambulance billing, she has a known plan that she intends to retire with a date. It would be my proposal that we outsource ambulance billing in the future. And it would be my proposal in discussing this with Shari that we outsource that as soon as possible. I've already written a draft RFP that we would send out to ambulance billing companies. I could send that RFP. I got feedback on that RFP from Curtis, who's our finance director. He had some good advice for me because I don't write RFPs on financial billing stuff. So he gave me some good advice on some tweaks to change. I could send that to Bill once we have the right first draft. Then I could bring that to you at probably the next council agenda that would accommodate us for direction.
Okay. We're on it.
Because I do agree that I think the sooner we move on that, the better position we'll be in. Thanks.
I just wanted to
Yep.
talk with her. She's ready to get her other things.
She's definitely got a lot on her plate. Thanks.
That's all I got.
Question, we'll find out shortly. Jeff?
One item, Habitat for Humanity had a board meeting tonight, which I'm not at. But they're asking me questions about the funding. So Bill, I've directed them to you if they haven't
Perfect.
contacted you already. So
They
just
have not, so
Heads up.
we look for that. Thank you.
All right. We have a couple of questions that were brought up. We need to be, I know we need, Paul's sort of announced his retirement date.
Well, he's got one of those paper chains, I think, in his office. Where he's
Oh, yeah.
tearing them off, looking down to Christmas.
It's not gonna be April Fool's. It's gonna be April 1. Paul's gone, so.
So I think that it was brought up that we need to be putting together an RFP for potential, somebody that.
Oh, the assistant. Yeah, we're working on a job description. Every time we look at him, we're giving the evil eye and say,
Yeah,
get that
okay.
to us. So
Can we give him a deadline? We've been waiting for this for a while. Can we give him a deadline?
Yep.
Kinda need
We
one
will.
in the Middle of the summer, so he
He's been on vacation the last month, basically. So, and he's in Dallas right now, but when he gets back, that'll be job one for him.
An economic developer, are we gonna put an RFP out?
That was, okay, that's what I forgot.
That was my next.
Yes, we're gonna do an RFQ.
Yes.
It's a little different than an RFP. The difference between the P and the Q is that for a proposal, there's usually a budget attached to it. For an RFQ, we just look for qualifications. We go after the most qualified person, and then we haggle over price. So I did ask, Lindsay and I went to a lunch yesterday. Gosh, was it only yesterday? It feels like a million years ago. We went to a lunch with some of the other city managers and things from the area, and they said that they're not aware of any restrictions on where that funding source comes from for that position. So it could potentially come from the RDA, and it could also come from budget. And we also talked a little bit about sales tax, and everyone around the table was kind of like, that's actually a really good idea. So that's something that we can kind of work on and structure with the qualified applicant that we choose to work through.
Good. The only thing I have to add to the discussion is we are, the Main Street Committee is meeting. We've had 2 town halls and several committee meetings, Main Street Committee meetings. We've got another one coming up on Thursday. And we're going to ask them to come together with a priority list of suggestions that they can present to the council. We'll have that probably, I'm hoping, in sometime in either August or the first part of September.
Yep.
We'll have that taken care of. So I just want to thank everybody here for your comments and taking this very important issue so seriously, and the good questions, and we appreciate your time. Thanks, Ben, for coming and sharing your concerns, and Christy for sharing your concerns. I have one more motion.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it, but everybody come get a piece of a cookie.
And come and get, can't leave without any cookies.
Can't leave us here
All
without
right.
eating some cookie.
That's all right. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes and the meeting is adjourned.